Hey neighbors, it is Sunday, October 13th. It's just after sunset. It's still not quite twilight. It's hard to tell because there's so many clouds and you could probably hear how windy it is. Watson and Fletcher and I are out on the trail. Fletcher plays a pretty predominant role in this podcast because our guest, Jim O'Connor, who we recorded yesterday, she just was drawn to him and was climbing all over him, and upon his arrival, though, decided to take a unauthorized walk around the neighborhood. We're still training her on the leash, and we've got a barrier fence, but we got to train her up on that, and she's got a lot to learn, and she's feeling out being in a new home still. So you'll hear a lot about Fletcher today. I've been walking in the dark a lot. In the mornings, I walk them before I go to work, and it's dark. And by the time I get out at night, or I get out in the afternoon to walk them, it's dark already. That's led to a couple alarming encounters with people on the trail since I didn't have a light or anything. So now the dogs both have little lighted collars, so we don't run into, we don't scare anybody again. One fella's pretty freaked out, and sorry that happened. Tried to get your attention, but anyway, some of the best things this week have happened at night. I went to my first bonfire up on Prairie Orchid with, I guess what it's called, the Braunschweiger Bunch or whatever. It was a great time, and it happened to be the night of the Northern Lights. And all that walking at night and seeing the Northern Lights just, gave me renewed appreciation for how dark it is. That being the darkness around us is like it's like clean water or healthy prairies that we'll talk to Jim about today in this episode. That it's really hard to get it back once it's gone, and I've just really appreciated walking back along the horse pasture. Right now, that is my vote for the darkest place in the development, and just really appreciate looking at the stars this week, seeing the Borealis, and then also just being alone in the dark, and our paths are bright white, so it's easy to navigate. It's been really great. Well, anyway, here's Jim. It's a really interesting podcast, and actually the first one I've done with someone that I don't know very well. I think it went really well. I think Jim had a good time, so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Joining us now is Jim O'Connor. Jim, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Not at all. I enjoyed being here.
Thanks. Just full disclosure, my family's out looking for Fletcher, who I've talked about several times so far, or at least once on this podcast. Our new dog, she slipped out. So if you hear Fletcher in the background, real life is happening in the background. Jim, how long have you lived in Prairie Crossing?
We moved in around 2002. I'm a retired Chicago Public School history teacher, and have been volunteering in the Cook County Forest Preserve since the 1980s. And to be honest, what really drew me here was the prairie. I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid, It really inspired me, and I had an 85-year-old mother who needed some attention, and so we decided this was kind of a compromise. I moved up here because we were able to get a house that was big enough for all of us to live in and not be on each other's nerves. So, yeah, it was good.
Wow, I didn't know that you were a history teacher. We don't, unlike the other people who've been on this podcast so far, we don't know each other very well. That's fascinating. So, what area of history did you focus on? I know each grade is a little different.
Right. It was a high school and basically U.S. history. I got a master's degree in American diplomatic history, and I was roped into being a wrestling coach when I was there, and I was a much better coach than I was a wrestler, so that was good. But kids really give coaches a lot of leeway, and if you're successful, they like that all the more.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Huh. Yeah. And when did you retire?
I retired in 2002.
Okay.
And I said I would never be a substitute teacher. And after a summer off, sure enough, I went down and went and substituted. It was just a little too boring.
Yeah.
And when I came up here, I taught a year at Grays Lake Central. Just someone was out on a maternity leave, and they asked if I would do it.
Yeah.
I said I would. So
Huh. Do you
that
miss
was it.
Yeah. Do you
That
miss
was
it? Do you,
That-
substituting's hard. People don't think it's a hard job.
Yeah. Yeah, substituting at the old school I worked at was fine. Yeah, it was okay. I mean, they have a rep. You know, you have a rep. And, so.
If you guys hear heavy breathing, Fletcher has returned.
Yeah.
She's I guess a good girl. She came back home.
She's a beauty. Yeah.
And then so you were volunteering in parks down in Cook County?
Down in the Cook County Forest Preserves, the Palos area, which is very nice. And when I came up here, I started to work for a company that a friend of mine started a business, and it was a restoration ecology business.
Mm-hmm.
So that led to burning and getting the working for the federal government on a burn crew, and taking all the classes that are necessary to burn with the feds.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all good. Had an ex-student on a crew in what do they call it now? Indiana Dunes National Park. It was a lakeshore at the time, and when we took all the classes to get certification for Illinois certified burn boss, I guess. He said, "Oh, you know, we're always short of people on burns." So they made me feel very welcome, and we did that for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What attracted you to that? That not a hobby, I guess it's a interest. Yeah.
I just always felt good going out in the woods and the prairies, and just be careful out there.
Yeah.
It could be an obsession.
Fletcher keeps climbing on
It's,
Jim and
it's addicting. Yeah.
I'm not from the Midwest. I'm not from anywhere with a prairie, and so my education has, I think, started when I took your burn class. Sort of, the month we moved in, Persephone Nurgi showed up at my door to get some things I was giving away, and pointed to a giant ragweed that I didn't know that's what it was, and said, "That's ragweed. You don't want that. You don't want that." I'm still figuring it out, but it sounds like you cut your teeth down there and started learning what to burn and what not, and what's supposed to be there and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone to a lot of conferences and Yeah, I think the prairie is in my blood. I mean, we're the prairie state,
Mm-hmm.
so I always fear that we'll become any place USA, and the more and more research that's done on it, the more I'm looking at native plants and the benefits of planting natives. We've destroyed, we've changed so much of the country. I think between cornfields and bluegrass lawns, which are basically sterile. I mean, they don't feed anything but grubs. We've really changed the natural world to the point of, well, hopefully it's a point that we can return to. I mean, the insects that really run the planet, we'd only be here about maybe a couple of months. If all the insects just disappeared, we'd be in big trouble. And because of the plants that we like to plant over the years from Asia, because they were trouble-free, or from Europe or whatever, the insects haven't been able to adjust to them. And so planting natives is a good thing, and they're beautiful.
Yeah, I've been trying to follow the saga of the is it the Prairie Bowl where they're trying to expand the airport in Rockford?
Yes, yeah.
And it's old growth prairie there, and they want to plow it up.
Yeah.
And the rusty patch bumblebee has stopped them, or it did stop them for a season. I don't know if it's going to happen.
We're unsure. You know, we've got maybe 0.001% left, native prairie like that, and all they had to do was move the road.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be. I think they're going to go ahead and.
It seemed to be leaning that way,
Yeah.
and the bumblebee was the excuse for stopping for a little bit, but
Right.
I don't know. So here you are in 2002. You're buying your home here. Our prairie, it was only 8 years old, I guess, at that point. What did it look like here?
A lot of invasive plants, a lot of white sweet clover. I could sit out behind my house and people would walk by on the trail and they wouldn't even know I was there. You know, I heard a lot of interesting things that I wasn't supposed to hear, I'm sure. But yeah, it's obsession is a wonderful thing, and over the years I just kept putting in more seed and more plants and burned it every chance I got for the first couple of years, and now it's very diverse, and it's something new every year. You know?
Right. I'm constantly amazed at that in my own little bit here. Also, that also makes me afraid to try to change anything because I'm afraid of what's under it that I would be ruining. You know, we had cup plants grow in this year that I've never seen before. There are Michigan tulips out in the back that I look forward to every year, but and things that former residents here had planted, like bearded irises that disappear, and I don't remember where they are. It's this constant. Every year there's something new, and there's the old favorites that show up, and things that probably shouldn't be here that I don't know yet. It's an interesting dynamic.
Well, I did some work on this site with for Patsy, and that tall grass with the big plume is Phragmites, and that's a tough one to get rid of.
Yeah, I've done two different things with that last year, in July, I went and just tried to cut it as close to the ground as I could.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I just cut the flower off.
This season.
As right when it looked like it was done growing. Next year, I'm thinking about just mowing it all down, and then if I see it pop up, hit it with some kind of industrial vinegar or something to just get it out of there, or look into the chemical angle, because it's all through our back here, all through every neighbor
that
has
wet
it.
swale, yeah, and there were a lot of desirable plants there, but yeah, it's a problem, and it's a problem out in our common area too. I don't get to everything. I'd have to be cloned. Watch how you spell that now.
When you in 2002, was there an environmental committee then that does what you do now?
Not really. I mean, they had a lot of meetings. There were quite a few people who would come to the meetings and suggest things, but there was never any work days. So eventually, over time, we started doing work days, and that's basically what's going on now. I mean, the amount of work that's been done by that committee is pretty amazing, considering the numbers that we get for work days. But it's improved quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I appreciate that every board meeting, even when I wasn't a board member, you would tell us how much we've saved by volunteering for ourselves.
Well, yeah, that's it's amazing how much the volunteer burn crew saves. That's even more so than I think most companies charge $100 per man per hour. So it just takes a couple beers at the end, and we're good.
Yeah, I have to say the strongest community building activity that I've participated in Prairie Crossing is when my little cul-de-sac here gets together and we go lawn to lawn and burn in the back. And
Yeah.
it's just we all did something. We had a purpose. I got a timeline. It's over when it's over, but we all help and we communicate and we talk about, watch out for that part, watch this, or you do this, you do that. It's a unique experience. I've only done it twice now, but I look forward to it when we do it.
And that's encouraging, because the more eyes and the more hands, when things go bad, they go bad quickly. And yeah, that's a wonderful thing. I encourage it. I encourage especially people who've just moved in and haven't burned before. Get together with your neighbors and make it a community. Steve Packard, who is in the North Branch, a very famous restoration ecologist, basically in the Chicago region, he says that the annual burn should be like a celebration, like Halloween or something. A rite of passage, and
yeah.
And that's I think what's going on with this cul-de-sac. We did that the same in my cul-de-sac when I first moved in, and and usually now we burn as a group. Most of us burn as a group. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Before we start talking about burns and some of the guidelines around burning, can you give us a rank of how do you feel our common prairie is in a health-wise right now? Where are we?
Well, we had a restoration ecologist out a couple of years ago who did a survey. And the results of the survey were basically that we had too much tall grass, and we had too much Canada goldenrod, and that we didn't have enough diversity. But we were about the same as other areas that received the same amount of work. We picked 15 spots for her to do a plant count in, and so it was okay. Now, in hindsight is always wonderful. We thought in the 90s, the experts thought in the 90s, that if you just got fire and planted the stuff to get fire through, which basically was tall grass, you could add stuff later and everything would be fine. No one is doing that now. Everyone is planting a very rich mix of species, which is a little more expensive. And their idea is put in now what you want to see in 100 years. And they're very stingy on the tall grass, if any at all, because it will come in anyhow. So, the Indian grass and big blue stem will basically dominate your prairie, and the goal is diversity. So
got it. Yeah. Okay. And so every year, if you're a new resident or you haven't been paying attention, just about every year, every 2 years, you host a burn school over at the library, right?
Right.
And the point of that is so people can do what me and my neighbors have done, burn your own property on your property lines, right?
Right. There's guidelines, and the burn school is geared toward burning home properties. I mean, it's geared toward the conditions at Prairie Crossing, and we do have some guidelines. 3 adults must be at the burn. They need to call either myself or Bill Pogson to ensure that the day of the burn that conditions are okay for them, and at least one of those adults has to have been to burn school. And then we have a whole series of things that they should line up. The first thing is look at the site, get rid of anything you don't want burned, and like furniture or a cushion that blew in from a windy day or something. But make sure that hose is long enough to reach off your property, and make sure it's charged before you start. In other words, ready to go, because we've had situations where people have not charged it and they got the hose out, and then it took 30 seconds to charge it, but it seemed like 5 minutes, when things are raging. So, yeah.
How are we able to do this in general? If you live anywhere else in the country and you light your property on fire, your neighbor's going to call the fire department.
Well, we do have a Illinois EPA permit, and it allows homeowners to burn on the permit that we receive to burn our common areas. There is a new head of that department. The other guy retired, and I don't think he was really very happy with the idea of homeowners burning. But, I said that we've got a relationship with the fire department, and we've got protocols that need to be followed, and hopefully that made him a little more comfortable with it. Yeah.
And mostly incident free right? Since we've started, I guess. I mean, that our track record of not burning down a house.
We have a good track record for that. We have had a couple escape, and so far so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the fire department did come out for a couple of these escapes, and they're structural firemen, and they have a whole different approach to putting something out, and that can be a problem. But yeah, God bless them. They've allowed us to do it, and
Yeah.
yeah, you basically can't have a prairie without burning it. A prairie is a fire-dependent ecosystem, and grasslands everywhere in the world have pretty much been burned. So,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. The relative benefits. In my mind, there's a lot of biomass. If you try to mow that down and then remove it, it's a lot of work.
yeah. About 3 years is the prairie produces more biomass on top than it can digest. So burning is a necessity. By burning, you get a longer growing season. You get more flowering. You get more seeds, and the soil warms up earlier. So all of that is good. That's not me.
Yeah,
doing that,
that's
by
not
the way.
barking. Sorry, this dog's
That's
barking.
okay.
Come on, go.
You got to be a role model. You got to be a Who's that? Who's
I have to say that his behavior has improved since we got a puppy, but she's making up for the difference. Hey, all done.
Where are they? Are they rescues?
That one is. This one is not. He's a pandemic puppy, and might as well have been a rescue though. So not a big fan of the breeder now that we learned a little more, but.
Yeah,
I mean, she had an ag degree and other things, but
yeah,
but he came from a working farm.
yeah.
In,
And
Mississippi.
they need to work.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, we frisbee, we walk,
Yeah.
we do tons, but does not like being pet by children at all. Like, just would rather focus on his shepherds. And then
Yeah,
this one though, right at the shelter, was super cuddly, and so we thought they would balance each other out.
yeah,
She's still learning how to behave though.
yeah.
Okay. Well, for example, I will cut all that out.
Yeah, sure.
What else? What else should we talk about now that we've got a break? I would like to talk about what we do want to see in our lawns and what kind of when we're weeding, when we're doing like, and then maybe push volunteering on the committee because that's a necessity too. Does that sound like a plan? Do you want to talk about those two things?
Well, we're in love with bluegrass lawns. I mean, and we judge people by their bluegrass lawns. Doug Ptolemy's book, Nature's Best Hope, changes one's attitude toward them, I think.
Yeah.
They're
the idea of
basically a wasteland.
Yeah, and the idea of a lawn comes
They're
from
great for planes and playing and,
yeah,
kids and sports, but yeah.
and they're not easy to take care of. I've had a big bluegrass lawn, and even that is as frustrating as having a I'm not a big fan of yard work, but this at least I feel a little bit. My conscience feels better, even though it's frustrating. But just mowing a huge swath. We lived in Charlotte before this, and just mowing that huge piece of property. It wasn't huge. It was in half an acre, but
Yeah.
just mowing all that grass for nobody to play on it because it's too hot and to just look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, your latest Meadow Mix article, the one where you talked about what a lawn should look like with some paths through it, water feature to make some sound to attract birds. I realized that that's what the people that own this house kind of built.
Yes.
We have that.
Yeah.
So how do we... I'm excited to have that. Now I have to go through and keep cleaning it up and keep working because there was a gap between, I think, when Patty owned it and when I got it, where it might have been a little left alone.
Yeah.
What should, if, in your words, what should a Prairie Crossing property look like?
Oh.
Or what are some what are some tips? Not should.
Stir the pot, huh?
Instead of should.
Well, I think that we should certainly get rid of invasive shrubs and trees. It should be an embarrassment to have a buckthorn growing on your property.
I got rid of mine.
Burning.
It was in the back. I did it.
Oh, thank you. Burning bush is a no-no. Honeysuckle is a no-no. I mean, the hedgerow, we must have taken 100 honeysuckles out of there, and no one planted them. The birds planted them. I just encourage... I just took out a couple daylilies from my own property, but they were hidden. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, I believe in planting natives. They're gorgeous. I mean, they can be a formal planting too. You don't have to make your lawn look like a prairie. And I know I talk about pathways and, the limiting the amount of bluegrass. But if you have kids and they want to play and you have a dog, that's fine. But you're going to have some planting somewhere, and those definitely should be natives. I mean, just because we really should have learned from the native peoples here. We live like we're not part of this ecosystem, and we really are, and we're basically destroying it. This is one of the advantages of being old. I may not be around to see the final demise, but I like that little expression. I sat under the shade of an oak and read a poem because someone planted it. And, that's looking at the future. And I've planted some oaks recently, and I'll never sit under them in the shade. But someone will, and hopefully they'll bless me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great place to stop. Jim, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Thanks for coming on. It's been really informative and good to get to know you a little bit more.
Well, thank you. Enjoyed it.
That's our episode for this time. Thank you again to Jim O'Connor, and thank you for listening. I am just looking over Gwen Riccio's last email about Fright Fest. Don't forget, it's a Saturday, October 19th from 4 to 10. The weather looks beautiful. It's at the Station Square condos. There'll be pumpkin carving contests for youth 12 and under and adults 13 and up. You have to drop it off at the condo fountain by 4:30. There's costume parades, scavenger hunt, haunted hallways. Food starts at 5, the food truck. There's a fire pit, hay rides. The non-scary start at $4.20 and are $2 a ticket. You can buy those tickets starting at $4. And the scary ones start at $6 with a requested donation of $5 per ticket. And then thanks again to Gwen and to Douglas Nergy for putting it together, and for all the volunteers who do the scare stations and help out at the front of house. You guys make this special, so thank you. This has been Around the Lake podcast. We will see you next time.